Welcome to the new way to celebrate Mass live and in person at St. Martin's. So in this time of COVID-19, there's a lot of things that we have to do differently. When you come to churches, it'll look different. Every other pew is marked off. There's markings on the floor. And we'll go over all that in a second. But just to basically explain that Archbishop Gregory has been very clear that everyone is dispensed from the obligation of coming to Mass until we get a working vaccine, which could be well into 2021. So that's important to realize that everyone's dispensed from the obligation to come to Mass. And in fact, everyone over 60 is encouraged to stay home, and anybody with underlying health conditions, diabetes, heart disease, compromised immune systems should stay home. So since I'm 71 and I have a compromised immune system, I should stay home, but I won't. So as long as God keeps me healthy, I'll show up and do Mass. So our plan will be that we will begin at some point when DC gets into phase 3 to do one Mass at 12 o'clock noon on Sundays. In addition, we'll continue to do the Mass that you've seen online. And in fact, we're going to try to be able to live stream the 12 o'clock Mass. So you might get two choices of Mass. So it's important that you realize that we'd rather you stay home and be healthy than come to church and somehow on that trip to church and back that you might end up getting sick. So the goal is we want everyone to stay healthy, literally in body, mind, and soul. So the video you're going to see was done by the people in the parish council, and the whole goal is to help you get a sense of what it will look like when you physically come back to church. And once it's time for that, we will put the word out a week or two at least ahead of time so people know that we're back in business, so to speak. I know some other neighboring parishes have already started. The pastors tell me they have maybe 10% of their people showing up for church, so it's a very small number coming. And when it's time, when we feel it's time for us to do it at St. Martin's, we will then make that choice. So what you will see following this now is a short explanation and kind of an orientation to how things will be different, how hopefully we can stay healthy as we praise God and gather together as a worshiping community at St. Martin's. You'll notice the first thing when you come to St. Martin's is there'll be a sign out in front of the church. The sign will say on there, welcome, face mask required, welcome, social distancing is practiced. We do not want you to sing as much as before we always wanted you to sing. Now that's not something we're doing. In fact, you will notice all the hymnals are taken out of the church. And as you come in, we're going to invite you, if you forgot your mask, to take a mask from us. So when you come in, that's the first thing you'll notice is being welcomed and being invited to come up with a mask to the front door. Once you come into the church, the first thing that will happen is we'll have a new ministry, the ministry of the temperature check. Someone will take your temperature very quickly, and if it's green, it means you're okay. If it comes out yellow or red, we need you to leave immediately because you have a temperature. And I've already made sure that you have your mask on. And then the next people you'll see will be two of the greeters with hand sanitizer to sanitize your hands. So once you have got your temperature checked, got your hands sanitized, then the ushers will direct you to have a seat. Now, this will be hard for many people because your regular seat might be blocked off. Every other pew in the church is blocked off. So you obviously have to choose a seat that's open. If you come with people that you live with, you all can sit together. If you come by yourself, you need to sit by yourself. It's important that we practice social distancing. So when you come in, we will encourage people to start sitting somewhere toward the front as opposed to where you might sit somewhere in the back. And we will encourage you to make sure that you practice social distancing. So you will see the ushers often encouraging people to wait until someone else is seated so we don't have everyone jumped up or stuck in one place. So once you're seated in the pews, this church will look a little different because people are seated 6 feet apart in every other pew. You can sit with your own family members if you live with those family members. So now when it's time for Mass to start, it'll be different. There'll be no procession coming from the back of the church. All of a sudden you will hear the bell ring from the sacristy. A bell that's been there back in the day when Mass was in Latin. We rang the bell before the priest and service came out. And then you will see myself and probably Deacon Bobby and the server come out, and you will notice that up in the sanctuary, we're also 6 feet apart. You will notice there's a cantor, no choir, and a keyboardist. So once we get started, then we will welcome people, we'll do a song, we will have the reader come up from the congregation because they have not processed in with us, and then we will go on with Mass as normal, except that we get to the Lord's Prayer. There's no holding hands, sign of peace. There's no physical expression of the sign of peace, which for us at St. Martin's would be very difficult because we're very much into hugging. That's part of what we do, and shaking hands and being greeting. So this will probably save 10 minutes of the Mass right there. In fact, the new Mass says we're supposed to be brief. So, and then at that point, we'll be getting ready for communion. And when it comes time for communion, you will notice these big signs on the floor that says, stay 6 feet apart. So we invite you to stay 6 feet apart coming up. The ushers will probably encourage people from the front to come up first, stay 6 feet apart, and go to whoever is giving communion out. And then you have to receive communion in your hand. And the way we want you to do this is once you receive in your hand, walk over about 6 or 8 feet where you'll see another sign, which is really a strange sign, but it says, please demask here. So then you take your mask off and then put the communion that you received in your hands in your mouth, put your mask on and go back to your pew. So we need to have that done in some order because we don't want people bunched up anywhere along the procession line. So, and we ask this time, if you're not receiving communion, to stay in your pews. In previous years, we'd invite people to come and cross their arms to come up for a blessing. But now the guidance we have is to come up with your hands, one hand over the other, to receive communion in your hand. So if you do receive communion, come back to your pew and take some time to go and thank God that we get to be here in God's house to receive communion. So we get to the end of Mass, we will have our final blessing. At that point, we will remind people that we cannot socialize in church. We will do the blessing, we will do the final song, and then the ushers will begin to invite people from the last pew to leave first. So here is like the last shall be first. The last pew goes, the next pew, and you have to go directly out of church. So basically, you've come to church, you've prayed, you got communion, and go home. So we want to have a chance to stay healthy. So the goal is not to socialize, which is very hard for us at St. Martin's, but we're trying to follow the guidance that we received from both the federal government and the bishop's office. So we encourage those who feel comfortable to come to church and to be part of St. Martin's in the flesh, and doing so, hopefully to celebrate how that we're still alive and hopefully staying very well. Thank you very much.